is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
Problems have arisen over the number of personnel going on R&R or leave without their IDs or MACB Form 5. Before you leave for R&R or leave, make sure that you have all the necessary forms. Check with your first sergeant or admin section.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources.
It's 1 a.m. In the top of the news, according to the Associated Press, the White House says President Nixon has ordered the bombing of North Vietnam stopped. It also says Henry Kissinger's private peace talks in Paris will resume January 8th. Deputy White House News Secretary Gerald Warren says Nixon ordered the suspension of bombing raids north of the 20th parallel as soon as it was clear serious negotiations could be resumed. Kissinger's negotiations with Hanoi's lolcow will resume after a halt of almost 1 month. The talks broke off December 13th, and Nixon began the heaviest bombing of the war Monday of last week. Warren says the technical talks between the experts of both sides will resume next Tuesday. Lower house level talks have continued sporadically since Kissinger's sessions reached an impasse. The White House spokesman refuses to say whether Nixon's order to halt the bombing has taken effect, but American officials in Saigon said earlier this morning that the halt had begun or was about to begin. Warren's brief announcement said the president has ordered that all bombing be discontinued above the 20th parallel as long as serious negotiations are underway. Hanoi has insisted upon such a bombing halt before talks could resume. The White House spokesman was asked if Nixon had received a signal from Hanoi that the communists were ready to change their negotiating stance. Warren replied that he could not yet discuss the content of discussions with the other side, but he did refer to Kissinger's statement 2 weeks ago that he would remain with contact with Hanoi, that talks would resume when the other side was ready to meet for serious negotiations. Warren emphasized that the bombing halt applies only north of the 20th parallel. This means that the Hanoi and Haiphong area again will be off limits to U.S. air attacks, but lower portions of North Vietnam still will be subject to bombardment. American officials in Saigon refuse to give a flat yes or no answer, but they indicate that another halt in the American bombing of North Vietnam heartland is either already in effect or about to begin. These officials had confirmed either that President Nixon had ordered another open-ended bombing halt in an effort to induce Hanoi into resuming peace negotiations, and they have hinted that the bombing halt above North Vietnam's 20th parallel may go beyond the traditional brief New Year occasion. Observers point out that stopping the raids north of the 20th parallel and extending it beyond a short-term halt presumably would open the way to further peace talks. However, U.S. officials in Saigon refuse to be pinned down. They're fending off questions with the answer that they can't discuss the situation with the negotiations hanging in the balance. And they add, this is a critical time. U.S. Ambassador Ellsworth Bunker and South Vietnamese President Tu met in Saigon today. There is no indication that what the two men discussed during the 10-minute meeting. However, from the brevity of the meeting, observers believe that either Bunker may have delivered a message from President Nixon or received one from President Tu. Sectarian violence has flared again in Northern Ireland. A Roman Catholic bakery worker was killed today in a Protestant sector of Belfast. He was shot by terrorists shortly after British troops had arrested 11 suspected Catholic terrorists in the Catholic Anderston Town section of Belfast. The dead baker was the 681st confirmed fatality in the more than 3 years of sectarian violence in Ulster. In Dublin, the capital of the Irish Republic, police have arrested one of the more moderate figures of the outlawed Irish Republican Army. The man taken into custody, Rory O'Brady, is president of the Sinn Féin, the IRA Provisional Branch's political wing. What is termed a revolutionary court reportedly will try the 4 Arabs who took over the Israeli embassy in Bangkok Thursday. A Beirut newspaper, which has closed links with the Palestinian movement, says the 4 men will be tried as soon as they return to their undisclosed base. The 4 are believed to be members of the Black September terrorist movement. There has been no word of their whereabouts since their arrival in Cairo yesterday. They had been granted safe passage after releasing their 6 Israeli hostages, but sources connected with the Black September guerrillas say the 4 terrorists had specific instructions to blow up the embassy and to kill the hostages if their demand for the release of 36 fellow guerrillas in Israeli prisons was not met. In other news, the Coast Guard now reports at least 93 survivors in the crash of an Eastern Airlines jetliner in the Everglades near Miami during the night. There were 167 persons aboard the huge Lockheed aircraft. Rescue operations are continuing, but this crash site is accessible only by helicopter, swamp buggies, and the shallow draft airboats driven by airplane propellers. And that's AFVN's news to this hour. Air Force Sergeant Mike Cum reporting.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources.
Good morning, Major. Good morning, son. Well, do you need another hornet? Down your coochie run. And that's called the Coochie Run, a song about the ugly little war. It was written in South Vietnam in 1966 by Lieutenant Mike Stagg, who wrote the words and is now singing them. Although he may sound like one, Mike Stagg is not a professional singer. He does not sing for money, he sings for his buddy. He is not a rarity in Vietnam either, for this seems to be the singingest war of them all. Every unit, it seems, has its own balladeer to tell its own story. These are some of those stories. These are some of their songs of war. Clear and tight. Coming through. Fly the jungle, fly the mountain, fly the whole Vietnam. Carry cargo, carry troopers, carry anything we can. Army aviation, Army aviation. All the way to 90, Army aviation. Like 25 miles northeast of Saigon, is the home base for 173rd Assault Helicopter Company. The troops call them the Robin Hoods because they live in an abandoned plantation nicknamed Sherwood Forest. Now, Sherwood Forest has its own merriment, 4 chopper pilots who work at war all day and then sing all night for the troops. This is called Army Aviation, an original composition of the merriment. As helicopter pilots, they face Viet Cong fire almost every day, yet they joke about the danger. We hope that no one gets hurt, they say. We would make a lousy trio. Some and saving many, she has our mission we perform, giving to the ground commander another on shore his right arm. Army aviation, Army aviation, Army aviation. Well, here's to the aviator who's gone before, who guides our path of life. He served his country and he gave his all. Now he's waiting for Slicks and gunships and steam, giant ships and the rest, caraboos and mohawks, he'll have some of the best. Army aviation, Army aviation, all day, night, day, Army aviation, Army aviation, Army aviation, all day, night, day, Army aviation, all day, night, day, Army aviation. There are plenty of other helicopter songs making the rounds now, but one of the most popular is Jolly Green, which pays tribute to the men who fly the Jolly Green Giant, a rescue helicopter that goes after American pilots shot down while on airstrikes over North Vietnam. Airman Dave Steveson of Ossining, New York, is a pararescue man who flies with a Jolly Green on such missions. The horn is sounded and you're scrambled, start the engine, turn the blade. Every minute that is wasted sends someone closer to a grave. You're running off to fetch another, won't you Jolly Greens ever learn that each time you start your engines, someone mourns for your return? Jolly Green, where are you going? Tell me why you play with hell, but if you ain't gonna listen, then they got speed and keep you warm. Now you finally got him spotted, but there's gunfire on the right. All you need is for one to hit you, and you won't be back tonight. Tell that pilot hit a hover, get him out right where he stands. Better use the time now, brother. I know you'll do it if you can. Charlie Green, where are you going? Tell me why you play with hell. But if you ain't gonna listen, then they got speed and keep you warm. I see you now, I hear you talking, and it seems you got your man. I don't know how you managed, but you live to fly again. Jolly Green, where are you going? Tell me why you play with hell. But if you ain't gonna listen, then they got speed and keep you warm. Oh, Jolly Green.
Certainly not all of the songs of the Vietnam War are original works. Most of them, in fact, are rewrites of familiar melodies and some popular hits of the past. For example, the Battle of New Orleans is now the ballad of the USS St. Francis River. At least over here it is. The St. Francis River, or the Franny, as the crew calls her, is a small Navy rocket-bearing ship that nightly pounds the Viet Cong from offshore.
In 1966, we took a little trip along with Captain Mangle and his mighty little ship. We took a few rockets and we took a few beams. By the time we got to Vietnam, we're ready by all means. We fired our rockets, but the VC kept a-coming, but there wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired Big Bertha and they began to running down the sandy beaches just as fast as they could go. The captain said he didn't give a hang. If they didn't want a mighty fire, they'd get it just the same. We held our fires, they come crawling like a snail. Then we opened up our 40s and we really gave them well. They ran through the briars and they ran through the bamboos and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast, but the rocket still caught them and they fell right down under Franny's mighty blow. We fired our rocket till our launcher melted down. Then we loaded up Big Bertha and we fired a few more rounds. Filled her up with wildy feet and caught her at the pass. All that's left of Charlie is a little patch of well. They ran through the briars and they ran through the bamboos and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. Ran so fast, but the rocket still caught them and they fell right down under Franny's mighty blow. If you don't believe my story about this mighty little ship, then with St. Francis River you should take a little trip. The weather is permitting and the seas ain't too high. Ask Charlie about my story when you get to Pang 9. We fired our rockets, but the VC kept a-coming, but there wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired Big Bertha and they began to running down the sandy beaches just as fast as they could go.
That was a crewman of the Franny, radioman George Hughes, and those were the words of his buddy, electrician's mate Gordon Ackland. The words of Lieutenant James Moulton of Albuquerque, New Mexico, tell of one of the bloodiest battles of the war, the battle for the Yadrang Valley, the first big encounter for Moulton's outfit, the 1st Cavalry Division. Yadrang produced a major victory for the 1st Cav, and one of the war's most moving songs.
I have been a soldier since I was a lad, and the bleed of my homeland made me feel so sad.
shoot back. Well, one day while flying the infantry round, looking for the VC, good shooting from the ground. 'Twas the 14th of November, we had a real bad day. We finally met the Kong in landing zone X-ray. Well, we flew in and out of that valley that night, resupplying all that was needed for the fight. Over 2,000 Kong were killed that day, 2,000 Kong in the battle I drank. Well, we all wanted to make it home someday to see. Some of them didn't in the 1st Cavalry. I can't say if it's worse on the ground or in the air, but when we're together, it's an unbeatable pair. Will we fly these hills day and night, searching for the VC to continue our fight? Over 2,000 Kong were killed that day, 2,000 Kong in the battle of our drank.
Lieutenant Grover Robinson, another 1st Cavalry man, writes of a different kind of battle in Vietnam, the one between the soldiers and the non-soldiers.
He wears a brand new buckle with a high dome shine. You can tell his voice because he always whines. Wears a brand new uniform about every day, picking up checks and handing out pay. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier with a civilian's job. He's got a Saigon desk job from age 5. Not very exciting, but it'll keep him alive. Never seen combat that on TV, but like Sergeant Saunders was a CID. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier with a civilian's job. Well, he can fill out a form and nothing flat, but you have to press him hard to get him to do that. Always complaining about his overtime. They ought to kick him in the pants and put him on the line. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier with a civilian's job. Now Bear Shadler talks about his Garrett troops hanging around newsmen and giving them scoops. The paper soldier doesn't need a press corps. They're telling folks at home how to win in this war. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier with a civilian's job. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier. He's a paper soldier.
In Saigon, meanwhile, they sing of the nightly battle of Tudo Street. Scores of lonesome off-duty soldiers begin their nightly patrols of the Tudo Street area around 6 o'clock in the evening, and always Saigon's bar girls are waiting to ambush their wallets. One of them has now been immortalized, if that's the word, in song. Her name is Chuyen. Now, there's one thing to keep in mind here, and that is that this is an in-war song, so a brief glossary of terms is required to fully grasp the meaning of the lyrics. For example, Saigon tea is just that, a very small portion of warm tea the soldiers buy the girls, who sock them about $2 a glass. And Bami Bar 33 is the name of a local beer. The troops say that Bami Bar is the one beer to have when you're having more than 33. And finally, a donut dolly is an American Red Cross girl. Together, they make up Vietnam's version of the Eternal Triangle.
Now listen, pilot, son, to me, I'll tell you of my song. When I left the shore to roll and drag and I landed at Saigon to me. Hello, Chuyen, my dear Chuyen. Oh, you Saigon girl, can't you the polka? As I walked down Paul Street, a fair maid I did meet. She asked me please to see her home. She lived on Tudo Street. Now we'd go picture of Ho Chi Minh. Where's Juliet, my dear Juliet? She can do a lot of things, but she can't dance the polka. I've come to this conclusion, all pilots need a rest. But if you go to Saigon, your morals it will test. And the moral of the story, don't be a sinner. Stop going down to Saigon, down Red Cross Recreation Center. Goodbye, Juliet. Farewell, you bomb. I'm trading in Mike and head outside on a dolly. Please pass the cookies. Oh, that's too late. I'm on the poker and wanted in the poker. Oh, you U.S. girl, can't you dance the polka? Cha-cha-cha.
Herschel Gober of Dermott, Arkansas, is an Army captain on his second tour of duty in Vietnam. During his first tour, he was a member of a Special Forces team in a hamlet 170 miles southwest of Saigon in the Mekong Delta.
In the war in Vietnam, there have been many songs written by many soldiers about the bravery of the American troops. Well, I had the fortune of working with the AFVN troops, the Regional Force and Popular Force soldiers. I worked in a place called Ken Giang, and I would drive down the road passing the outpost the Popular Force soldiers man, and they'd always wave with a big smile and holler, "Shout I wee, okay Salem." And I'd wave back at them and holler, "Chow Nook Mom." And then one day, I came down this road, and the outpost is gone. The night before, the Viet Cong had hit this outpost with a cordless rifle and a mine and had killed 11 men, women, and small children. And I thought to myself, if ever a brave man lived, it's this guy. A man who lives in the middle of nowhere, guarding a vital bridge so that his people can go to market. And I wrote a song, and I couldn't think of a better title to call this song than A Picture of a Man. I'll sing you a song of a little brave man who defends his outpost time and again. A man not so different from you and from me. A man who will fight to keep his country free. Shower shoes, a
song of the Vietnam War. But All My Trials is still a very popular song among the troops here, because I think of the hope that it transfers to all who will listen. All my trials, Lord, soon be over. Let's see now, how many days will it be before I can go home? The song has other meanings to the men. All their trials could be over in one sudden and violent moment, in the blast of a claymore, or the burst of a machine gun. It is a hard fact of the war they sing about.
There is a tree in paradise. The pilgrims call it the tree of life.
Some of the stories of the men of Vietnam, just a few of their songs of war, a few of their own tunes of glory. This is Ike Pipas, CBS News, Saigon.